Welcome to Module 5, Choosing Assessments, Guiding Questions and Domains of Transition Assessments. Here we'll be discussing the domains of transition assessments and how we choose assessments by using guiding questions to determine what data we need to gather for each student. Career assessments, there are so many to mention, expose students to the endless careers that are out there that they have never heard of. Students and we generally are limited by what we see around us or who we know. The key to successful secondary transition planning for students with disabilities starts with that comprehensive age-appropriate transition assessment. Secondary transition assessments for students with disabilities provides a foundation for defining the rest of the student's secondary transition plan, including those post-secondary goals, transition services, courses of study, and annual IEP goals, and coordination with other agencies. The assessments drive the instructional and planning process for the student. You might be wondering, how do I know what transition assessments to use? Well, we suggest that you become familiar with the different types of transition assessments by referring to our USBE Transition Assessment Padlet or your LEA's Transition Assessment Toolkit if they have one. It's important to know your student to determine which assessments will be most helpful in determining their transition needs. We'll be providing guiding questions in the next slide to help you choose appropriate assessments for your students. And lastly, it's always good to use assessments from multiple domains to ensure that we are addressing all of the students' strengths, preferences, interests, and needs. These guiding questions can be a good starting point to help you and the IEP team determine what transition assessments to use to gather information on the student's SPINs. We always want to start with the student's strengths and interests and involve the student in the process of self-discovery. Many times, students do not know their own strengths and interests, so it's important that we use a variety of transition assessments to help the student learn about their strengths, preferences, and interests. It's also important that we, along with the student, learn about their transition service needs through assessments and target self-determination and self-advocacy skills, as well as adult living skills. Often students don't know what they want to do in the future because they don't know what's available in their community in terms of employment and post-secondary education and training. Students should be introduced to opportunities that align with their strengths, preferences, interests, and needs. Keep in mind that transition assessment is as unique as each individual student. You will need to consider assessing or developing a transition assessment toolkit that includes a variety of different methods for gathering information about your students. Be mindful of the characteristics of your students before choosing an assessment. Think about factors such as attention span, vocabulary, reading ability, and ability to self-reflect before choosing an assessment for a student. The student may need support during the assessment or have it administered in small chunks. Implementing a student-centered transition process involves including families and the student. They play a critical role during transition assessment. They can share unique information, particularly about the student's strengths, interests, and needs outside the school setting. These details may include sports, religious experiences, hobbies, and time with friends. Providing this information can bolster certain areas of focus, especially when it comes to preparing for post-secondary education, employment, and living in the community. We know that families and students often identify expectations for the future that are different from those of the school. Family and student expectations are important to know, given that they are the most powerful indicator of post-school success. Learning more about the families and students' values and cultural expectations is also essential in developing culturally responsive plans for the student's future. Going beyond the typical reporting of assessment results at the IEP meeting, designing and developing family and student-friendly methods for reporting assessments results will support students to become more self-determined. Students should be actively engaged in this process. Have your students consider these questions as they participate in the transition assessment process. Who am I? What are my unique talents and interests? What do I want in life now and in the future? What are some of life's demands that I can meet now? What are the main barriers to getting what I want from school and my community? And what are my options in the school and community for preparing for what I want to do now and in the future? If you have a variety of methods and approaches in your transition assessment toolkit related to career interests, you can ask students which particular career interest inventory they would like to fill out. Mary's case manager asked her which career interest inventory she would like to complete from a provided list. Mary chose to complete the leisure and work search inventory to identify career interest areas because this particular information identifies employment opportunities related to leisure interests, such as fixing things at home, going to museums, volunteering, or visiting state parks. Because of Mary's interest in the arts, this was the assessment she was most motivated to complete. Make sure that you consider these questions as you choose assessments and include your student in the transition assessment process. What is the purpose of the assessment chosen? Am I observing the student in the setting in which the behavior is expected to occur? Am I gathering input from the student and other relevant people in the student's life? When it comes to using transition assessment data, consider these questions. Am I using transition assessment data to inform each component of the student's transition plan? Am I evaluating students' progress towards their goals and services? Am I involving the student in tracking their own progress? There are many transition assessments to choose from as they are not a one-size-fits-all, so it's important that we choose appropriate assessments for the students that we work with to help determine their strengths, preferences, interests, and needs. Most transition assessments fall under these 4 domains. Career interest surveys, of which there are many, including online inventories. There are some assessments that help determine a student's readiness for college and other post-secondary training. We often overlook the importance of using self-determination assessments, but these are very important to help identify skills a student may need to be successful in those post-high settings. And lastly, there are many assessments available for determining a student's skill level and needs in the areas of independent living and adult living skills. This includes not only for our students with more significant support needs. There are both informal and formal transition assessments. However, most transition assessments fall in the informal categories, such as inventories, observations, questionnaires, interviews, and curriculum-based assessments. You can use results from formal assessments if they are current. Transition assessments are generally informal assessments as an ongoing process of data collection regarding transition-related information about a student. These may include the types of assessments on this list. These may also include information from parents and other IEP team members as well. Students with complex support needs may need different transition assessments to effectively identify their SPINs, as traditional transition assessments may not be appropriate for a student with extensive support needs. Here are a few simple and free assessments for students with complex needs. You'll find these assessments on the Transition Assessment Padlet. Most of these assessments will require parent or family participation to gather accurate and rich data on the student's SPINs. Keep in mind involving your students in the transition assessment process so that they can better understand their own SPINs and feel more empowered in their transition process. Probably one of the most important things we can help students achieve is to advocate for themselves. The more support we can provide in this area for students, the higher the yield in terms of self-advocacy skills on the part of students. This is why it is strongly recommended to assess students in the area of self-advocacy and self-determination to determine the skill gaps and strategies needed to address those gaps.